Coming in at number 10, teachers have favorites and least favorites. And guys, it does affect the way that you're going to be treated. Obviously, I mean, come on, it's pretty clear. Just how kids have favorite teachers and least favorite teachers, and just how in life we have favorite and least favorite people, teachers will pick their favorites. Teachers are more likely to help students who are polite to them. They're more likely to grade up their papers if they're borderline, and of course, they're more likely to cut these students some slack. Their least favorites, however, are likely to be students who are rude or arrogant, and guess who are going to be downgraded if they're borderline. Even if teachers are supposed to treat their students equally, their emotions do come into play. Coming in at number 9, teachers talk about you behind your back. Remember those least favorite students? Well, teachers don't usually keep that to themselves. Also, if they find you an interesting character, they'll talk about you too. It's not always bad kids that they talk about. If you rotate classes, you will have a number of teachers, and they will enjoy talking about you to one another. They'll probably even share stories about you in the staff room. Coming in at number 8, in schools, teachers have drama just like kids. It isn't just you that hates Mr. Fitz. Mrs. Green does too, and whatever, because teachers have staff room dramas too, especially as some of them are wildly different people who have different ways and beliefs on how to do things. Teachers sometimes can't stand one another, but they have to work together, although on the flip side, some of them are dating and they really don't want you to know about it. Coming in at number 7, teachers look up kids and their parents on social media. Yep. You might Facebook stalk people, maybe even your teachers, but they look you up and your parents up too. Curiosity is natural, and finding out that you are actually skipping school to drink in the park or go to the mall is possible with the power of social media. Also, creeping on your parents may go some way to explaining why you are the way you are. Coming in at number 6, schools judge parents as much as the child. Yep, bad kid, bad parents, or so it often goes. If a child never has any food with them for lunch, it's probably the parents' fault. Often teachers will keep an eye on a child that they suspect has a parental issue, and then they will decide whether or not to call them in. Coming in at number 5, I really hope this isn't too much of a secret, failing a test isn't the end of the world. I hope that schools do reveal this to kids, because sometimes kids crumble under pressure of exams, and they should know that messing up on occasion really just isn't the end of the world. When you're 40 years old, you probably won't hinge the failings or successes of your entire life on one exam, so relax, chill out. You'll probably get a better grade if you're not feeling stressed anyway. Okay, next. Shh, don't tell anyone, but not doing your homework probably won't affect your grade. This is coming in at number 4. In most schools, your day-to-day homework won't contribute to your grade. However, your essays and test results will. The reason that you're assigned homework is to prepare your brain for the tests and essays that will count, so it's always a good idea to do it. Although you should know a teacher can't fail you for not doing your homework. Ooh, sorry to tell you, but coming in at number 3, your hard work isn't always read properly when it's graded. Teachers are busy. Imagine, they take 5 different classes a day, and they need to grade work from each student in an evening. It's an endless pile. More often than not, teachers will want to get the additional workload done and dusted so they can focus on having a life, because they have one too. The problem is, it does seem a little bit unfair when you spend hours on a piece of work that gets like 3 minutes of attention from teachers just because they want to watch some Netflix. Sad but true, at number 2, a lot of teachers are very unhappy. Teachers kind of have a rough time of it. They're not just working while you're at school, they're there before and after, setting up and tearing down your lessons. Also, then they're marking or preparing for the next day. Most teachers that I know work from 8 AM till 5 or 6 PM, and then they have marking on top of that. They don't get paid that much either, which is a constant bone of contention. Increasingly these days, they also have to deal with violent children, which is very scary, and I guess at the end of the day, sometimes they wonder, is it worth it? Finally, number 1 of our top 10 secrets that schools don't want you to know, big end of year exams are actually proven to be bad for students. There have been a lot of studies that have revealed that end of year exams with big weightings on a student's grade are actually very harmful to them. It turns out that tests aren't always the best way to decipher a person's intelligence, and the system is heavily weighted against those who struggle with anxiety. Hopefully one day there will be a better way to test people in the future. In Finland, for example, there are no tests except for one exam at the end of senior year at high school. Number 10, I don't mean to freak you out, but like, a lot of your teachers are doing it. There There are countless reports of teachers having affairs and getting into relationships. A lot of people meet their significant others at work, and it's no different for teachers. Depending on the size of the school, I would bet at least 2 of the teachers at your school are dating right now. I know in my primary school, the headmaster and one of the teachers were having like a seriously long-term affair. Okay, getting more serious, at number 9, a lot of schools have gang problems. It was reported by the National Center of Addiction and Substance Abuse that 45% of American high schools have gangs or gang members on their campuses. Gangs often bring outside violence inside schools, posing threats to other pupils. A lot of people think that schools need to do more about gang culture, offering help and support to kids that are exposed to organized crime. Unfortunately though, the reality is most schools are trying to disassociate themselves with the image of gangs. Coming into number 8, schools cause mental health problems. Over the past few years, there has been growing media attention surrounding the rise of mental health issues amongst school children. In the UK, it's reported that 46% of girls aged 11 to 21 have needed help with their mental health. Meanwhile, doctors have reported a 68% rise in self-harming amongst younger children. British news publication The Telegraph drew a strong link between the pressure and stress of the education system on the younger generation and this increase in mental health issues. The problem is, not many schools have comprehensive mental health programs in place to deal with the rising issue. Coming into number 7, a lot of schools don't know how to handle social media. These days, more than ever, kids bring factors from their external worlds into the classroom. Almost all teenagers have smartphones and are active on things like Snapchat, Twitter and Instagram. Now this is a world that teachers may be less familiar with than the students, and a lot of schools don't yet have proper measures in place to regulate social media. On top of that, schools have shown time and time again that they do not know how to properly manage cyberbullying. Coming in at number 6, 1 in 10 schools in the UK and the USA are failing. Whether or not this is actually the case, several different reports and studies on both countries suggest that 1 in 10 schools are failing. In the UK, it's thought that around 250,000 pupils are attending a failing school. Worryingly, in the States, according to Psych Central anyway, 30% of students fail to graduate high school. Now that's just not good enough. Coming in at number 5, schools don't always do proper background checks on who they employ. Whilst teachers are subject to extensive background checks, not all people that work on school properties are. The school bus drivers, the janitors, contractors, kitchen staff, in many places these people are not subjected to the same rigorous checks. In the UK, for example, vetting blunders led to the employment of Ian Huntley. Now he was a janitor at a school in Soham where he murdered 2 10-year-old girls. Now this was despite having been reported to police for sexual assault on 6 occasions. Coming in at number 4, schools could be killing creativity. Some people theorise that schools just simply don't nurture creativity. Art subjects are being scrapped in many UK institutions, with many people worried that creative subjects will be gradually phased out altogether one day. Coming in at number 3, you're not always taught what you should be. The national curriculum decides what is taught in schools in the UK, and the United States curriculum is largely governed by individual states. Either way, people don't always agree on what should and what should not be taught. For example, in Canada and the United States, people think that children are not adequately being taught about Native American history. Whether or not you agree with this is kind of irrelevant. I guess the issue is who really gets to decide what children learn and should they have that responsibility. This considered, let's move on to our number 2. That's right, coming into number 2, some people think schools are brainwashing you. Now I'm not sure about this, but the dialogue is definitely out there. The problem is that both sides of the political spectrum are concerned that schools are brainwashing their children. In the UK, 6 academy schools have been flagged as radicalisation risks. The problem is that children are very impressionable, and some institutions are concerningly using that to suit their agenda. Coming in at number 10, a lot of schools give kids poisonous water. A lot of school buildings are old, we know that. Up until the 90s, we really didn't know how damaging lead as a building material was, and a lot of schools have lead pipes or lead paint, which is not okay. Drinking lead water is poisonous. Now where I live in Ontario, for example, it is supposed to be one of the best areas for education in North America, yet 640 schools and daycare centres failed their lead tests. kids. This means that the drinking water is not safe for kids. Now in the USA, 350 schools failed the lead test, but that is only roughly 10% of the schools actually regulated by the Safe Drinking Water Act, so hundreds if not thousands of more are probably pumping out unsafe drinking water to kids. Taking it in another direction, old school buildings may come with more than just lead in the water. At number 9, some schools are haunted. I mean, this totally depends on whether or not you believe in a good old ghoul, but with old schools comes a lot of history. Most schools will have seen a tragedy over their years, but they likely won't advertise it for fear of scaring or distracting the children. There are so many school ghost stories to talk about, but check out this footage from one of the oldest schools in Cork Island. Pretty scary, right? Does your school have a ghost? Let me know. Coming in at number 8, meals are worse than prison food. In the UK and the USA, school cafeteria food just isn't the one. Many of us will remember Jamie Oliver's famous crackdown on terrible school food in Britain in 2005. Back then it was revealed that a meagre 37 pence, so under $1, was the daily budget per child in the UK. This year in the UK, the government plans to push through changes to free school meals without a vote in Parliament. This could see 1 million children go hungry. In the USA, school food is also an issue, with a number of sources concluding that prison food is actually more nutritious. It seems that only 1/3 of US schools are meeting the recommended standard for saturated fat in their meals. With that in mind, consider this sad fact. Coming in at number 7, some kids are too hungry at school to learn properly. Teachers are well accustomed to spotting the lower income kids. Some American children, 13 million according to the Denver Post, go to school hungry. Kids from lower income families often rely on the food that they're fed at school being their only meal that day. If the standard of meal that they're getting is actually not great, then they're obviously not going to get enough nutrients that they need at a crucial time in their lives. Hunger affects a child's ability to concentrate and can dramatically affect their grades. Coming in at number 6, the American school system is one of the worst in the developed world. The PISA school ranking systems ranks the education of 76 countries, and this includes affluent first world nations, but also includes developing nations in Africa, Asia, and the Middle East. The United States is 27th on the list of 76, but if we were to only include the first world countries, then they'd be right at the bottom of the list. Right now, the education system in Vietnam significantly outranks the USA. Coming into number 5, teachers have secret lives. Shocker, teachers have lives outside of schools, but some have more interesting lives than others. In 2016, the story of teacher Gemma Laird came to light. She was let go from her position at Bloemfontein Primary School in Durham, England. This was because parents of children at the school discovered that she also worked as a model. Her modelling pictures did include some lingerie shots for a catalogue, and parents weren't happy about it. Although the school were aware, they let her go when it was made public. A similar thing happened in Utah to a teacher, Mindy Jensen. Now, she was nearly fired when parents discovered her bodybuilding Instagram account. I don't know though, teachers can have hobbies too. Coming into number 4, teachers are spying on you. It seems that some classrooms have CCTV. A survey done by the National Association of Schoolmasters Union of Women Teachers in the UK found that 1 in 10 classrooms have CCTV. The General Secretary from the union said that lab rats have more privacy. It isn't just the students that are being watched, it's the staff too. They're constantly under pressure to perform. More and more classrooms in the USA are installing CCTV in order to spot illicit behaviour in the classroom. Also, forget CCTV for a moment. Some teachers resort to good old-fashioned peekaboos. Check out this tweet by Joseph Morales. He said the teacher left the room during a test, so he started sharing the answers. He looked up and she was staring right at him through a panel in the ceiling. Coming into number 3, teachers can hit children in both Canada and the USA. According to a 2016 Huffington Post article, both Canada and the United States are not among the 50 countries that have banned physical punishment of children in all settings. Section 43 of the Criminal Code in Canada says that parents or teachers can use force to correct children as long as the force does not exceed what is reasonable under the circumstances. In the States, corporal punishment in schools is legal in 19 states, but it's mainly a problem in the South, especially in Mississippi, Texas, Alabama, Arkansas, Georgia, Tennessee, and Oklahoma. Personally, I really don't don't think it's okay for teachers to hit children. Coming into number 2, bad grades can lead to suicides. Suicide is a bigger killer in the United States than murder. Most young people who commit suicide are boys, and the numbers begin to spike between the ages of 12 to 15. A study on suicidal behavior posted on Statista showed that the percentage of people seriously contemplating suicide sharply rises as kids' grades fall. 21% of those receiving D and F grades attempted suicide, and this is compared with just 5.6% of people gaining A grades. A shocking 36% of those with mainly D to F grades admitted to suicidal thoughts. Are schools doing enough to tackle this issue? Many people say no.
At number 10, the fact that we don't have 5 senses. We're always taught in school that humans have 5 senses: sight, hearing, taste, touch, and smell. Although there's no doubt that these are senses, they are not the full story. Some neurologists believe there could be anywhere up to 21 different distinct human senses. These include your sense of balance, organic senses such as hunger or thirst, and lesser known senses such as proprioception, which is your brain's knowledge of the relative positions of your body parts. My way of describing that sense is when you first wake up, you instantly know where your different limbs are without having to see, taste, touch, or smell them. And if you can smell your limbs when you wake up, I think you might need a shower, my friend. On to number 9, and I want to ask you guys, who was the first European to discover the Americas? If you said Christopher Columbus, I'm afraid your school let you down big time. Columbus sailed the ocean blue in 1492. That's the phrase parroted by school children across the world, teaching them that Christopher Columbus set sail from Spain and was the first European to set foot in the Americas. But it was actually the Vikings who were the first to reach North America, with settlements in Newfoundland, modern day Canada, and even evidence of trading with the Native Americans they came into contact with. They got there around 1000 AD, which means Columbus and the history lessons you had were almost 500 years too late. Alright, moving on now guys, if you're watching this video you're probably not too far from a light bulb, but at number 8 you'd be wrong to think Thomas Edison invented it. Huge inventions like the light bulb can often be hard to credit to one person, but if you had to give it to anyone, give it to Humphrey Davy and Joseph Swan. They both developed working electric lights well before Edison, but it was Edison who is credited with developing the first commercially viable electric light. He discovered that by using carbonized bamboo as a filament for the bulb, a bulb could glow bright, last a long time, and be cheap to make. It was that last factor, the cost, that made his patent the most popular version of the light bulb, which is why a lot of people give him sole credit for the invention. Interesting stuff. So let's move on to number 7, and I want you guys to complete the sentence. You are as blind as a... If you said bat, I'm afraid you're wrong. It was often taught to us in school that bats only use echolocation to get around as their eyesight is so poor from evolving in dark caves. The truth though is that all bats have eyes and are capable of sight. Various types of bigger bats can even see 3 times better than humans, and almost all bats in the megabat or fruit bat family cannot even echolocate and have excellent night vision. They have large bulging eyes and rely on them solely to locate their food. So next time you guys meet someone that says bats are blind, tell them to just open their eyes. Pun intended. At number 6, when you were learning about gravity at school, this guy was probably brought up. Isaac Newton. He's credited with coming up with the universal law of gravitation, which is the basis of how we understand gravity today. Big stuff. But many people are taught that the idea just hit him one day, quite literally, when an apple fell from a tree and onto his head. It's not a million miles from the truth, but Newton actually just witnessed an apple fall from a tree in his mother's garden. After seeing how the apple always falls in a straight line to the ground, he went and developed his theory. I'm glad we cleared that up. And would you look at the time, we're already halfway through now at number 5, and we're going to be talking about Vincent van Gogh's ear. A lot of us were taught in history or art class that famous Dutch painter Vincent van Gogh cut his left ear off and gave it to a prostitute. He apparently did this after having a huge fight with his friend who was also an artist. The truth that has come to light in recent years is that it was actually Vincent's friend who did it. He was an avid fencer who drew his sword when the two were having an argument, and somewhere along the lines he took a swipe and accidentally cut off part of Vincent's ear. But letters between Vincent and his brother after the event seem to point to the fact that instead of him reporting this to the police, Vincent decided to make up the story about him doing it himself in order to save his friend from jail time. Well, it seemed to fool the the police way back then, and it still seems to fool a lot of people even to this day, because 100 years after the event, people still wrongly think that Vincent cut his own ear off. Now though, we're at number 4, and we're going to be talking about how many states of matter there are. Most people were taught at school that there are just 3 states of matter: solid, liquid, and gas. Everything in existence falls under these categories. Although they are the most well known, they are not the full picture. There's all kinds of different states that matter can be in. Plasma can be found in everything from neon signs to the inside of stars. Liquid crystals have molecules that are ordered like a solid but behave like a liquid, and the list goes on, including Bose-Einstein condensates and superfluids, to name but a few. I think it's fair to tell kids that there are 3 states of matter, but I think we should at least hint that there are others out there, otherwise you'll end up like me, a grown man who only just found this fact out today. Now then guys, we reached number 3, and we're going to be talking about the misconceptions between tongues and taste. Does this tongue map look familiar to you? It claims to show the different areas of your mouth that are responsible for all kinds of different tastes. Bitter at the back, sour on the sides, salty in front of that, and then sweet right at the front. It first appeared in 1942 at Harvard University after a man called Edwin Boring, yes, that's his real name, misinterpreted a German study and drew the first tongue map. Before anyone knew what was going on, they found their way into countless biology textbooks all over the world. We now know that the entire surface of your tongue is responsible for detecting all kinds of different tastes. At number 2 now, we all know that diamonds come forever, but if you thought that diamonds came from coal, well, I'm afraid you're wrong, but don't worry because I thought that too, so we can both be wrong together. Coal is made up from the carbon remains of ancient plants that lived up to 450 million years ago. The thing is, most diamonds on the planet date back to before 542 million years ago. That means most of the diamonds ever made were already diamonds almost 100 million years before the first ancient plants ever appeared to eventually form coal. So most diamonds aren't made from coal, but you can use coal to make torches, or so I've heard. Alright guys, so at number 1, we're going to be talking about how the greenhouse effect is caused by global warming. Or not. Now guys, don't get it twisted, global warming is a real thing, and all the evidence seems to point towards humans being to blame for the rising temperatures of Earth, but somehow the greenhouse effect got lumped in with all of that along the way. The greenhouse effect is an absolutely essential part of nature that involves our atmosphere trapping some of the radiation heat that hits our planet and bouncing off and absorbing it instead. This makes the atmosphere and our planet a lot warmer than it would be without any atmosphere at all, which gives us the climate needed to sustain life. It's a totally natural process, but it's when humans release too many greenhouse gases into the atmosphere that we really start to create a problem. But that's something for a whole other video.